This is Justin.
And this is Haley. You're listening to The Price of Avocado Toast.
We're a married millennial couple wanting to normalize the conversations around money. We want to hear about your highs and your lows,
The do's and the don'ts on your path towards financial freedom. Hi Toasties, welcome to The Price of Avocado Toast.
Whether you're a first-time listener or you've been following us from the start of this thing, we are so glad to have this conversation with you today.
All right, first things first, I want to remind everybody that we are doing a cash money giveaway on the gram. So please make sure you are following us on Instagram. It's at The Price of Avocado Toast. And we have some instructions written on a post for you to follow. And the giveaway will be open until Friday, February 12th. And then we will close it. And sometime next weekend, we will be announcing the winners. We have 3 winners. There will be a $30 winner and 2 $10 winners. We will send money either through Venmo or PayPal, whatever you have if you happen to be the winner. So please make sure you participate in our giveaway and good luck.
Yeah, we just want to do a giveaway, you guys, to say thanks for the 10,000 downloads that we have. And, maybe it buys somebody coffee, or maybe it buys somebody, a cheap dinner date out with their loved one. Whatever it is, we want to make sure that we say thank you to those people that have been supporting us. And it's in our February budget. So we planned for it. Woo!
Woo! This podcast wouldn't happen without all of you listening. So we really appreciate it. And we just want to thank you.
Yeah, it feels really good knowing that we're not talking just straight into the void, and that people actually care about us and care about our success and how we're doing as a couple and as a family. And yeah, we just want to say thank you. So this is our way of trying to do that. So for today's episode, you guys, we have an awesome interview with Kristin. She is a financial coach. She's a fellow millennial like Haley and I. She's got a day job. She's absolutely crushing it in all realms of her life. So we were really excited to be able to get to sit down and talk with her about a little bit more in the investing realm, because we haven't done too many episodes on that. So if you're interested in investing, this is the episode for you. Without any further wait, you guys, let's jump into that interview. All right, you guys, today we're sitting down with Kristin from Strive with Kristin Coaching. Kristin, thank you so much for sitting down with us. I know that Haley's been really excited to have you on, and it seems like Chris from the Everyday Millennial was talking about you as well. So it's really cool to finally get to sit down and chat with you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I actually just listened to your podcast with Chris and was really impressed. So I was excited to be on as well.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you listened.
Yeah, it was cool getting to meet Chris, and he had some good things to say about you. So I'm glad that you're following right up after him. So Kristin, can you just start us off and kind of tell us who you are, what it is that you do, and what it is you're all about?
Absolutely. I am a pulmonary critical care PA. So that's my full-time job. I work night shift. I do 7 12-hour shifts on, and then I have 14 days off. So in my 14 days off, I decided to launch a company called Strive Coaching. The purpose of the whole company is to increase financial literacy and promote financial independence, really to all millennials, but it ends up being a lot geared towards healthcare professionals, just because those are the type of people that tend to relate well to me, since I am one. So now that's what I spend my off weeks doing. And then I, have my kind of full-time job still as a critical care PA.
That's pretty cool. I think it's important because, people say talk about what you know, right? Or go into an area that or you're comfortable with. So even while you can branch out and help other people, you have such a unique, I don't want to say market, but such a unique place that you're in, that you can help those people that, unfortunately, as we know or we've heard, are also struggling with a lot of debt at times, or a lot of money issues in those occupations. So it's pretty cool that you've been able to kind of adapt that towards that field. It's almost like the budget teacher helping teachers.
Right, specifically just towards teachers. That's really cool. I love that.
Thank you.
So Strive Coaching, are you a financial coach? Is that what you would call yourself?
I am a financial coach. I actually started, when I first started the company, only doing one-on-one coaching, and I didn't have a website, didn't have a social media, and then sort of realized very quickly that, this is 2020 or 2019, I think at the time, and you kind of have to be online.
Yeah.
So I got online and started doing more stuff in that space. And then COVID hit, and I decided, it's hard to do in-person meetings when there's a global pandemic. So I thought, how can I kind of pivot? And that was the beginning of doing like online courses and master classes and virtual things, which ended up kind of being a blessing in disguise because you can reach a lot more people with the
Totally.
same amount of time doing it that way. So
People from all over the world can connect with you just through finding you like on their Instagram, and then they can find all the resources that you provide. And then if they want coaching, connect with you. That's really cool.
And we've seen a really cool like entrepreneurial like bump from COVID. And while it's unfortunate that our country's going, well, the world is going through this, it's really cool to see people like have a moment to maybe slow down and like focus on something they're interested in and try to adapt it for a new technology or like a new, interface. So that's pretty cool that you've been able to do that. Where did like the financial stuff come from? Like, did you grow up like comfortable talking about with money with your parents or your friends, or like what made you want to go into financial coaching? Because obviously you have a day job of being a PA, which is like a lot on your plate anyways. So like, where did that come from?
So I did not grow up knowing about money, talking about money. I actually, went to PA school, really was completely like a money novice, took out $161,000 in student loan debt. And then when I graduated, I realized this is a disaster. I've dug myself into this massive financial hole. And so I sort of started my own financial education process at that time, simply to deal with the mess that I had created for myself. And then kind of over the years, that has turned into like a pretty significant passion. I spend most of my free time doing money podcasts or reading personal finance books because I really enjoy it and I'm interested in it. But it definitely was not something that I just sort of came into on my own. I guess it took me creating a financial mess to really develop an interest in the topic.
I feel like so many people go that way. I mean, that's how we came to be how we are. We screwed up so many times, and it was through those mistakes that led us to learning about financial literacy and learning the things we know now that we can talk about on the podcast, when before we also had 6 figures of student loan debt. So, I mean, we still do.
Yeah.
No, we have 90. We have 90.
We're down.
Progress.
Woo!
Yes.
I think that you're right. It's more people have gone through the difficult stuff than we've seen people that were like, yeah, I've been set up from success from the start and like really grasped money at a young age. But that kind of just shows you like how it's such a taboo thing, and families deal with it different ways and how we cope with it all. But I mean, I guess the important thing is you're working your way out now and you've taken care of it now. So that's pretty cool.
Oh, she is out. I just love your account because I have a couple things I want to ask you about. But the first one is you paid off $161,000 of student loan debt in under a year and a half. You said it was 16 months, right?
Yes.
That is awesome. So air high five.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's pretty dope.
So what advice do you have for other people that are part of the 6-figure debt club? Because it's a really sad club to be a part of.
It is, but it's a club with a lot of members. So
it is.
Yeah.
Definitely a common problem. Honestly, it's a simple equation. There's just income and expenses, and whatever's left in the middle is what you can put towards debt. So, you can limit your expenses, and you should limit your expenses, but you can only do that so much. You have to eat. If you want to accelerate your debt payoff, really you have to increase your income. So I did a combination of both. We lived extremely frugally. We did not travel. I drove like a $4,000 Chevy Cobalt the whole time. We had bought a house previous to me even graduating school that was a foreclosure, very affordable, and we lived off of my husband's salary. So every single dollar that I made, we put towards my student loan debt. And then that, I started out just doing that, and it's like, gosh, this isn't even enough for me. Like, this is so much debt. I want to be done with it. I'm sort of an impatient person by nature. And so I'm like, okay, how many hours are there in a week? I'm going to work all of them so that I can just like make the most money possible and pay this off as quickly as I can. So that's what I did. I worked probably 80 to 100 hours a week for the whole 16 months.
Wow.
But it was worth it. It's 16 months.
Yeah.
You can do anything for a short period of time.
I feel like you have made a post about being able to pick up extra shifts in your career. Is that just like available? You can do that pretty much however you want.
Yeah, and it's honestly one of the easier parts of trying to pay off this much debt when you're like in medicine. For example, my husband has like a traditional salary job, and so him working like overtime wasn't really an option.
Right.
But for me, it's very easy to do. Like you can sometimes, depending on your job, pick up extra within your own job. But it's really easy to get. They're called per diem jobs. They're basically PRN or part time, where you just like get on board with an urgent care or a hospitalist group or an ER, and you say, I'm going to work 3 shifts a month. Where do you have gaps in your schedule? And you just fill yourself in. So the whole increasing your income for a short term is actually pretty feasible in my field.
That's really awesome.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, if it's 16 months, you can do anything for 16 months. I think it's so much easier when you see a light at the end of the tunnel. Like you back plan and you design that and be like, okay, that's the date. If I accomplish all these tasks, it makes it really easy to like go after it and to like push towards it because you're like, okay, I see that that's on the horizon.
And people who are listening, if you have a job that's not like Kristin, where you can't just like pick up all this extra shifts or whatever, this is where side hustles come in. So you didn't necessarily go get like 5 different side hustles. You took the job that you had and made the most out of it, getting the most hours. But not everyone has that opportunity. So that's really cool that you were able to do that.
Mm-hmm. And that's where you find those hours if you
Yeah.
need a side hustle. Like, okay, I've got X amount of hours in my week. If I can't do it with my normal job, I can pick up a second job that can fill those gaps and fill those hours so that I can bring in more.
Yeah. So you and your husband, like, how did you come to the agreement that, like, okay, we're just going to hammer this out? I feel like that could be either make or break a marriage or relationship in general. Like, hey, I'm never going to be home. I'm going to work all hours of every day. How did you guys come to the agreement that, like, this is what you wanted to do and you wanted to be debt free?
I'm lucky, honestly. Like, I've been with my husband for 12 years, maybe 13 years this
Wow.
year. We were high school sweethearts, and we've always been like very much on the same page with money. So he was absolutely on board. He grew up in a Dave Ramsey household. So I think the debt probably made him even more uncomfortable than it made me. So he was totally willing to get rid of it. And the fact that like I had to work all the time, he sort of recognized that he didn't have the same opportunity. So he sort of transitioned to doing like everything at our house. So he would do like groceries, cleaning, cooking, whatever. So we both actually were like carrying a lot of extra burden during that time. It was just different burdens.
He sounds like a really good dude.
He is,
Are
yeah.
you comfortable sharing his first name?
Yeah, it's Mitchell.
All right, Mitchell, shout out Mitchell. If he listens to this episode to hear you from husband to husband, I'm saying shout out Mitchell. What a good dude.
Love it.
Yeah, that's pretty rad.
You are the real MVP.
Yeah, for real.
Yes, absolutely.
So another thing I wanted to touch on, the first one was the student loans, and the second one is the fact that you guys paid off your house before you were even 30, and that is the coolest thing ever, regardless of where you live in the world. So huge congratulations to you.
Yeah, shout out.
That is amazing. I am so happy for you guys.
Thank you so much for saying that. Honestly, like, I'll be honest, we had it easier than the average person. Like, we live in a low cost of living area. We live in Indiana in the Midwest. And not only do we live in an area where houses aren't $2 million, we also bought a foreclosure. So that really helped a lot. I mean, that part was our decision, of course. We could have bought, a $400,000 house and we didn't.
Right.
But because we did buy a foreclosure that was an absolute dump and then remodel it on our own, we had a smaller mortgage really than most Americans do. So we were able to kind of hustle and get it taken care of really quickly.
So you guys bought the foreclosure and you just said that you guys did the remodel yourself. Are you guys like interested in real estate? Was that a thing that one of you had like, oh, I really want to get this foreclosure? Or was that out of necessity to find something inexpensive?
So actually, we are interested in real estate, and we are in the middle of sort of figuring out how to navigate that. That's one of my husband's kind of big passions, that he wants to get into real estate investment, I guess. The issue is in that realm, most people have heavily leveraged portfolios and carry a lot of debt. And that's kind of the benefit, really, and how people get such good return on their money. But we're sort of debt averse people by nature. So it's kind of like, how do we navigate the balance of wanting to get reasonable returns where it makes sense to do it, but not wanting to have, $500,000, $600,000, $800,000 in mortgages hanging over our head.
That makes total sense. And I
Yeah.
feel like, because we've also talked about, eventually I think we want to go into not like hardcore real estate investment, but, I think we'll probably end up having a rental or two, and that means acquiring more debt. And so it's a real big, like, do we wait till we're completely debt free, we have our own mortgage paid off, or I mean, yeah, you really have to be in a position financially where you can, no matter what, pay for all of those mortgages if say all of your tenants were to move out the same month or something, because you never really know what could happen.
Right. We've been discussing kind of like a compromise. This is by no means a set in stone plan, but we were considering sort of adding rentals at a rate where, like, taking out a mortgage on them, probably doing 20% down, but then making it to where we never have a mortgage in a real estate of any type that we couldn't immediately pay off if we wanted to. So, like, having enough other assets, other investments to where if something were to happen, like you said, like the tenant goes away or whatever happens, it's not a financial concern and you could write a check and pay off the loan if needed. I don't know that that would be the solution in that problem, but it just makes me feel better about the debt. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think it makes total sense. I mean, I think Dave Ramsey, at least, he had, like you said, a bunch of different heavily leveraged assets, and then the bank called all his loans. And so you can't pay them. They're taking your stuff. You're bankrupt, And so that makes sense, while maybe carrying a mortgage and using that, income to take care of it could be a good plan, as long as you have that, like, fail safe of if anything were to go wrong, we can still take care of it. I think that's a safe plan. Yeah. I mean, obviously y'all are probably doing your homework on it anyways, so you didn't need our advice. But I mean, it's just interesting that you talked about buying a foreclosure, because I think some people get twisted up with the idea of like, oh, do I want to buy a foreclosure because it's inexpensive and this is, a better option for us right now, or it's I want to buy a foreclosure because I enjoy flipping or rehabbing homes. There's so many different ways people interact with that stuff.
It was an adventure. When we did our initial remodel, we were on a very tight budget. And at one point we took down a wall and literally found 30 dead mice inside a wall.
Oh my gosh.
It was an adventure, yeah. But the house had been empty for 2 years.
Yeah.
So, those things happen, but it makes for good memories.
Yeah, I'll say. You take a picture of that and like put it up somewhere. Put it in the wall, like when you repatch it, right? So when whoever owns the home in like 40 years and they take down the wall, they're like, geez, this was in here a while ago? Like, oh my
30
God.
mice lived here once,
Yeah. Oh my, it's
Oh
been
my
a
gosh.
well-lived home.
What year did you guys buy your home?
Oh, let me think. It was 2014, February of 2014.
Okay. And so, I mean, 6 years. I think you posted in 2020 that you guys paid it off, right? I think I remember seeing like the celebration post and stuff. Yeah, that's cool. Well, congrats. That's awesome.
Thank
That's
you.
super rad.
How does it feel to literally be free of all debt, including your mortgage? Because I feel like that would be the coolest feeling on earth.
It actually is. It is very inexpensive for us to support ourselves. Like, I think our taxes, insurance, and utilities all combined they're absolutely less than $400 a month. So then, we have our emergency fund, and it's just like, wow, like we could actually live for a really long time without either one of us working, because we just don't have really any bills, which is great, especially in light of like COVID hitting and, jobs being questionably not secure anymore and things like that. It gives you a nice sense of peace to know that you can at least have shelter and a car to drive and not have to worry about the bank coming and taking it away.
Yeah, that's a comforting feeling for sure.
When we paid off our credit card debt, our mail went like half. Like, we were getting mail every single day from different companies, credit card companies and everything. And then I think we had like 10 cards.
Yeah.
something wild. Anyway, then it went to like
Wow.
0, and he's like, "Did you check the mail?" I mean, there never is mail anymore. We get mail from a few different companies, like the electricity and water, and that's basically it. But I mean, we still have our student loans and our mortgage and everything. But it's interesting how when you have no bills, it's like, wow, this is a whole new world.
I know. Now, I'd be curious to know, did you guys close your credit cards completely or did you keep them open?
Great question. So we've kept them open. Our plan is basically to slow roll closing them. So we have some plans to eventually get a bigger home, and so we don't want to like tank our credit prior to doing that. So we've closed one, and then we have a couple plans to close some more rolling into the spring and the summer. So,
And a couple closed automatically, like just from not using them for
Yeah.
a year.
mhm.
But
Yeah.
you know, we live in California. We live in the Bay Area. We just cannot afford to buy a house in cash. That's not in the cards and won't be for 30 years.
Yeah.
We need that credit score. Not everyone does, but we definitely do in the situation we're in. So we can't afford to just trash it.
Right. You know, I, again, meant to mention Dave Ramsey. He always says, close the account. And so,
Yeah.
like 20-year-old version of me, I had a credit card in college. I never carried a balance, but I had one. And then I'm like, well, Dave Ramsey says to close it. So I closed it, which I didn't know that would like ruin your credit score. But, you learn lessons throughout life as you go. But I remember calling to close it. And the person on the phone, like, started fake crying. And they were like, yes, I'm not kidding. I swear, like, this is a true story. They were like trying to convince me not to close the account. I kept insisting, like, no, I just want to close it. And then they started crying on the phone, saying like they were going to lose a customer and all of this stuff and how it would like reflect poorly for their job. I don't think they were real tears, but I couldn't believe that happened.
Did it work? Did you end up staying on?
No, I closed
Oh
it.
no. That
I was like, I'm sorry about your job. Like, but
well, if that human somehow listens to our podcast, I'm hoping things are on the up and up for them.
yes, right.
Oh, that's great. That's a good story. I like that. So, how does your husband feel with the coaching business now that it's, what you do in your 14 days off, right? I'm sure that your 14 days off are pretty well booked up, or you've got things going on that you're planning for and stuff. How do you guys navigate that as a couple since, he's got PA wife and then also this like coaching business that's growing?
He's supportive. He works like Monday through Friday. And so when I'm off work, he's gone all day during the day and we don't have kids yet. So I'm basically just create a full work day for myself with my company at home. And then when he gets home, then I typically kind of put it aside. So we've made it work really well that way. I do some stuff on the weekends, but it's mostly stuff that I do kind of while he's putting in his work week anyways.
That's pretty convenient.
Yeah, that's a good way to make it work because I think it would get really easy, like when you're home, to not shut it off. I mean, for example, like we're teachers teaching from home. It's really easy to stay on the computer past our contract hours or, to find ways to fill time with work. But if you're able to be like, okay, while he's gone, I'm going to be working. And then when he's home, we're able to like be a couple and stuff. That's cool.
Gosh, you're both teaching from home at the same time. That cannot be easy.
It was difficult in the fall. Haley's not teaching right now during the spring, so it's a little bit easier. But in the fall, it was definitely difficult.
Yeah.
When she decided to not go back, I was pretty happy.
Yeah, he taught on the other side of the wall, and my kids I taught 6th grade, and he was teaching 5th grade, and my kids could hear through the computer him every morning because we're just loud people. I mean, I'm hard of hearing, but he would just like yell on Zoom. So it was crazy. We also have 3 dogs and a baby, so it was a lot.
Yeah.
Yes.
And yelling is I wasn't yelling. I'm a loud human, right?
Yeah, he
Like,
definitely wasn't
I love
yelling.
my students. They know I love them. I'm not sitting there yelling at them, scolding them during a pandemic.
No, you were just like cheering him on
Yeah.
Zoom loudly.
Yeah.
Okay, so you talk a lot on Instagram about investing, and I kind of wanted to know, where do you recommend that someone really even starts? I get so many questions from people about investing, and we don't really like to talk about the area because we don't personally know enough, and that's just where we are with that. We have a Roth IRA and then teacher pension plans, and that's it. So that's as far as our knowledge goes. So people ask, where do you start? And I don't know how to answer that. So what would you say to them?
So in general, the first place to start is always in tax-favored accounts. It depends a little bit on tax bracket. In general, if you have an employer 401k match, that's the absolute first place to start because that's an automatic 100% return on your investment. From there, most people move to a Roth IRA because the reality is, it's post-tax dollars that you invest, but it's tax-free income in retirement, which is a really big deal. If you're in a super high tax bracket, sometimes people stick with the 401k or the pre-tax type of investments first and max that before going to a Roth, simply to reduce their taxable income since they're in such a high tax bracket. Personally, we use both, and I think that ultimately having flexibility in retirement by having fully funded sort of pre-tax type of accounts that would be taxed at your income tax bracket and then post-tax accounts that would be tax-free allows you to sort of finesse where you want to pay taxes and when in a scenario that is basically entirely uncertain. We have no idea, what tax brackets will look like in 30 or 40 years. So all we can do now is take our best guess. I'm of the opinion, and this is completely my opinion, there's no fact behind it, that tax brackets will be higher in our future than they are currently. So I'm a big fan of everything Roth because I like the idea of me not having to worry about that and having all of our income or a lot of our income in retirement being tax-free. So I use a Roth IRA. My husband uses a Roth IRA. And I have a Roth 401k. And my husband has a traditional 401k because he doesn't have a Roth option. So we end up with a mix of everything, but I think overall I tend to err on the side of Roth simply because of A, I anticipate tax brackets being higher, and B, I don't anticipate our tax bracket being lower, which is something to think about. Like if you think that you're going to be in a really high tax bracket now and a really low tax bracket in retirement, then a traditional 401k would be the perfect place for you to put all your money. Rental income is taxed as ordinary income, and income from your 401k the required minimum distributions will push you into a tax bracket. So based on those things, I'm a Roth fan. I know that was a long-winded answer, but that's what I would recommend.
That's great information.
And that's a good answer. Yeah, like we said, that we're not really deep into the investment stuff, and so we kind of hold our tongues because we don't want to give somebody bad information, but somebody who's kind of, built their knowledge base a little bit stronger, that's a great answer.
We don't even have 401k options with our employers, so it's just different for every position and field, really. I mean,
right? Absolutely.
People have their pension plans, union, just like there's so many different things for everybody. I feel like that's why I kind of don't really want to dabble with it too much, but I love that.
Yeah. So I have to ask then, what do you think of all the GameStop, Dogecoin investment? I don't want to say drama because somebody listening might be like, I love it and I'm down with it, but like it was stressful. It was a stressful week watching it as like somebody that's not even invested in it. What did you think about all that? If you could give us your candid answer.
Yeah, I think it's fun entertainment. I don't invest in single stocks at all. So for me, I was just a spectator on the side watching what was happening with interest. My overall investing sort of strategy is really broad-based, low-cost index funds or ETFs. So kind of own the market type of thing. So I probably own GameStop in one of my index funds. I haven't even checked. But as far as like the idea of picking a single stock, trying to time the market, decide what's going to be a good time to buy and sell based on all these sort of extraneous factors, I think is really akin to gambling. And it's not something that I feel comfortable doing with my money. If some people do, kind of like more power to you, but you should probably keep it to a low percentage of your overall assets, like less than 10%. Just have a little fun, see if you can make money, but I wouldn't put all of your eggs in the single stock basket.
Yeah. I think Chris said, like, you can do what you want to do, but you've got to be prepared to only play with what you could lose. Like you
Exactly.
can't go in with something that you're not willing to lose. And that's like, I mean, I've said like I'd rather just go to a casino, or I'd rather just like bet my brother on sports games or something, because at least like if I lose it, oh well, it was like on a game that doesn't really matter. But when you're playing those single stocks, it can get pretty intense. And you saw a lot of people that the rise and like the dip of it all, like there were some pretty high emotions. People were pretty jittered by it all, and like that's just not what I want to do to my heart. Like it's just not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get healthy, not cause an early heart attack.
I need predictability.
Yeah, for sure. It's stressful. There was something else that I just had in my mind, and I want to remember it. You had mentioned GameStop. You had mentioned index funds. Oh, I remember. Just kind of a cool story. I was listening to a podcast, and the guest that they had on has started to kind of work with his kids on investing. And he asked him, "What's your favorite restaurant?" And they both said McDonald's. So they got some McDonald's stock. And he was like, "Now every time you go and get a Happy Meal, you're like paying yourself." So I was like, that's pretty cool. That's a great way to teach it to kids. It just popped in my mind as you were talking about like single stocks and being careful with it. I was like, oh, I don't know. McDonald's is probably pretty safe. They're not going anywhere.
That's a perfect way to teach your kids like what it means to own a stock and own a share of the company. I love that.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. It was pretty
That's
interesting.
kind of cute.
For sure. So you mentioned index funds. You mentioned ETFs. You've talked about real estate. Is there anything else like in the gamut that you're like, I might think about investing in this, or it's crossed me and my husband's mind. Shout out Mitchell. It's crossed our minds in the investing world. Is there anything that we've missed in there?
Honestly, not really. I'm fairly boring as far as like overall investing. We, like I mentioned, use Roth IRAs and then our employer retirement accounts. We do invest our HSA, which is probably my favorite retirement account to use. I say that with air quotes because most people don't think of it that way. But it's the most tax favored account available to you. So we invest all of the funds in our HSA and pay for our medical bills out of pocket. We invest in a taxable brokerage account, but that's only after maxing out all tax favored options. And then we'll move into real estate. But I don't really get into kind of the other things like cryptocurrency or like precious metals or rare arts or anything like that. My strategy is honestly just like very boring, very predictable. I have almost everything automated. So it's not even something that I routinely have to think about. Most of it just happens by itself.
That's cool. I know some people, maybe invest in like restaurants or businesses they think are going to be successful. And I don't know the returns on those, but I've heard of it. Can I take like a minute or two of your time and like steal some free coaching from you?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you explain an HSA? Because Haley and I were sitting down the other day, and again, we're just not super confident in that stuff yet. And Haley was like, "Hey, we really need to do our homework on this because it seems like a really good option." And I'm just not totally sure what it is. Can you give me like a 1 to 2 minute synopsis, or I guess the listeners as well, of like what that is and why you think it's such an advantage?
Absolutely. So it's a health savings account. It's only accessible to people with a high deductible insurance plan. So that's sort of the prerequisite. But if you have that, you can open an HSA. It's different than an FSA in that it's not use it or lose it. The money rolls over every year. It's yours forever, and it comes with you if you leave the job. So it's relatively safe to put your money there. It's not something like with an FSA where you're worried that if you don't use it, it's going to kind of be wasted. Within the HSA, you can either leave it in like a checking style account, or there's like a button when you log on that says invest. And then it opens this whole other page where you can actually take the money that you have in the account and invest it in whatever funds the HSA will allow you to choose from. Once you do that, the money is essentially invested in the stock market, just like it would be if you did in a taxable brokerage account. The reason HSA is so great is that one, when you contribute, you're contributing pre-tax dollars, and sometimes your employer is matching as well. Two, it grows completely tax deferred. And then three, when you use the funds for a qualifying expense, it's tax-free then. So it's kind of like combining the benefits of a 401k with a Roth IRA, to make this super awesome tax baby, which is why it's such a great sort of extra retirement account. Now, this isn't something you would do if you don't have an emergency fund and you don't have enough flex in your budget to cover the low medical expenses that come up, the $40 here, $60 there. And then in reality, like I said, you should have an emergency fund that could cover your deductible. But if those things are in place, you can invest all of this money and then keep this all the way until retirement. The average retiree, the average like healthy couple as of now, 2021, that's 65, can expect to spend like $300,000 in medical expenses in retirement after Medicare. So having an account like this that's fully funded, that you've been sort of investing the funds for years with a substantial amount of money, could take a lot of the burden of dealing with those medical problems in retirement off of the rest of your portfolio.
That's okay. I think that was over 2 minutes. So thank you for the additional free coaching. But that is legit. That was a really great way to describe that.
Okay, so a little background on our medical situation with insurance. His employer contributes like $1,200 monthly to the family, and we have the highest plan, so we have no deductible, no copays. We don't pay for anything except for upfront. We pay $1,300 for our family's insurance. But the reason we opted for that is because we have $100,000 of debt, and we cannot cover a multiple $1,000 like trip to being air flighted somewhere. My nephew had an accident last year, a skiing accident, and I was thinking, oh my God, if you like don't have good insurance, that would bankrupt someone. He had to be air flighted off the mountain and was in the hospital for like a month. And so something like that would ruin us. And so we opt to pay more monthly. And so I was saying, when we're debt free, I think we should look into an HSA account so then we can have a higher deductible, lower monthly, because we're healthy. We don't really need to be spending that much, but it's really just our safety buffer. And so that was a great explanation because I feel like I was pretty spot on with what I thought it was, but now I feel even more confident because, you can use that money for the medical expenses, right?
Yeah, so the nice thing about having the HSA, like we have all of our funds invested and we pay for our medical expenses out of pocket, but we keep our receipts. So like 7 years from now, if all of a sudden we're like, wow, we really need $5,000 out of that HSA, we can actually submit those receipts and reimburse ourselves for things that we paid for now and just take the money out tax and penalty free.
Later.
So it's yes,
Wow.
anytime, even before retirement, if you keep your medical receipts. So it kind of serves as a backup emergency fund and a potential extra retirement fund.
So do you know where or why it was created? Because, it literally seems like it gives all leverage to users.
That's a great question. I actually do not know, but I'll be interested to see kind of how things go over time, because the reality is like all other pre-tax accounts have required minimum distributions in retirement, because if you're giving pre-tax money to the account, government wants their taxes at some point, right? But the HSA isn't like that, and there's no required minimum distribution. So as of now, it's like the secret sort of pre-tax loophole. It does have a lower contribution limit than like a 401k does, of course, but it's still a nice window of opportunity to really save money on taxes.
Is the contribution limit set for like everybody? Like I know Roth IRAs, it's like $6,000 a year, right? $6,500 or something like that. Is it kind of like that where it's a smaller portion that you can contribute each year?
It is, and the numbers that I'm going to say are probably a little off. It's somewhere around like 3,500 for an individual, and then more like 5,000, 6,000, or 7,000 if it's a family. But the contribution limits are fairly low.
Okay. I guess the hope is, though, like you said, if you have an emergency fund, and decent insurance, your emergency fund can cover what you need, to then take care of, hopefully your insurance then can cover any big, large expenses, and that HSA can sit. Like, that's really cool. That's awesome.
Really, really cool.
Yeah.
I feel so much smarter after talking to you. You educated us.
Yeah, that's
That's
awesome.
awesome.
I love that. And I mean, seriously, like it was literally just a couple days ago. Haley was
I think
like,
it was yesterday.
yeah, like, okay, you're right. I think it probably was. I think I fell asleep on the couch. That's neither here nor there. Nonetheless, my wife has said that an HSA is important, and when your wife talks, you listen. So I was like, okay, HSA, I need to learn more about that. So thank you. And thank you for the free coaching. I won't, sorry, listeners, I'm stealing that. Any free coaching you were getting, I just took it for the HSAs. So sorry, gang.
Okay, so I want to backtrack to something that you posted on Instagram, I think today actually. You put two comparisons of two different people, and one was a man and one was a woman. Let's just say Jack and Jill. And they make like the same amount of money, and they, I think, had the same job or whatever. But Jack spends all his money every month, and then Jill invests like $500 monthly or something like that. And then by the time she went to retirement, she had what, like 2.8 million or something. I just want to say thank you for making the woman the one that made the great decisions.
That was intentional.
And I think people need to just check you out on Instagram, because that was such a cool, to the point graphic about what compound interest does. You know, you can easily eat out $500 a month. Easy. And so if you prioritize investing and putting your money aside, you can be easily a millionaire by the time you hit retirement age and retire much earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, I think one of the biggest sort of issues that our society will face in coming years is retirement. Most people, like for most of us, pensions are no longer a thing. Like there are certain kind of professions or sects of society that get them, but for, 80+% of the US population, we don't have a pension, which is much different than how things were even, 20 or 30 years ago. So we are all going to have to fund our own retirements. And I think very few Americans really know what number they're shooting for or how to fund it to do it well. So you're going to end up with a whole bunch of people who are relying on Social Security, which is a broke system, and then relying on Medicare, which is also a poorly funded system. And I think it'll be a big problem. So kind of a lot of my Instagram posts are promoting like, whatever, you need to invest this percent of your income or be consistent or do this much each month to make sure that you're in a situation where when you are retired, you're not expecting Social Security to sort of meet your basic needs, because the reality is it probably won't. I think the average for 2021, the average monthly payment translates to only like $18,500 a year from Social Security, which, the average family can't live off that.
No.
So the people that aren't investing at all, I'm like, oh no, like you have to eat when you're retired. We need to do something about this.
Yeah, that's brutal. I think my favorite post, I don't know when it was actually two women, and it said this woman goes and gets her nails done, and this one does not, and instead puts that $30 into the bank. And as somebody who is married to a woman who has not gotten her nails done during COVID,
I haven't
bless
done
my
it for
wife,
a year and a half.
yeah, I'm like, okay, I wanted to show it to her and be like, honey, this is potentially long-term what you have done for our family. Like you were a rock star when I met you, but like this is legit.
The true deep sacrifice.
Yeah.
Sacrifice my
It was a great
fingernails.
post though. It was like, I mean, it was literally like if all you did was put that $30 every 2 weeks away, like this is what you'd make. And obviously, like if you're listening and you want to get your nails done, like do your thing. I would probably like a pedicure right now, and I'm comfortable enough to say that. But like if you put it away and invest it, like you can get a little chunk of change by the end of it all.
I think the point is it doesn't really matter what you're cutting. Even if it's a little bit,
Yeah.
It makes a difference. And I appreciate all of your different scenarios that you put out there. And the woman making the good decision with Jack and Jill made me like, yes, love this girl.
That's me. Yeah. Honestly, it's just, I think what it is people don't realize how sometimes like a little habit that you have that you just accept, like this is my normal, ends up adding up a lot. Like there's an opportunity cost for every dollar that you spend. If you would have invested this money, what would you have at 65 versus having the thing? Now, I'm not saying that you should never have the thing. There are plenty of things I like to spend money on, and I do. but I always kind of have this frame of reference of, okay, what is this? What am I trading right now for the future by the purchase I'm about to make?
Can I ask you what the guilty pleasure is?
Oh, it's wine.
Yes.
Oh.
Wine is my hobby.
Love that. We're in wine country, so I know that once we're finally debt free, I'm sure there'll be some wine clubs that we enroll back in.
Okay, your renovation. Did you put in a wine fridge?
I did, yes.
I
and
feel like I
is
saw
my
that.
prized possession.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
that's okay. When we're debt free, we
Yeah.
pay off our house. Can we do that?
I'd love to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
A nice,
Hey, this is on the record.
cool. A
Okay.
cool temp Pinot, cool temp Pinot, oh my gosh.
Perfect.
Yeah. I sound kind
I
of bougie. But
wholeheartedly. My best friend from PA school and I actually have been studying to become sommeliers together. So we've been going to classes and doing all these tastings. And I really felt like a wine fridge would be the perfect addition to my life. So we did that.
yes, I love it.
So I sound like such a stalker. I'm like, I saw this on Instagram. But I also saw this on Instagram that you guys went on a trip when you paid everything off. Can you tell us about your trip? And I really want to go to Mexico, so can we do that?
Sure.
Cool. Okay, so what did you do to reward yourself once you paid off all of your debt?
We did. We went on a big trip. 12 out of 10 recommend doing that. It was a
12
really
out of 10.
seriously, it was a huge motivator for me to it sucks. The whole process of paying off debt just kind of sucks. So I spent a lot of time at work, working these night shifts, creepily in the call room by myself, what's the best hotel we could go to? So I ultimately picked this place. It was a little private island resort in Belize, super small. It had 25 people on it. We had a fabulous time. It was all inclusive and so relaxing. And it was just yes, we did it,
That's
goodbye.
That's got to
cool.
be sweet.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's fun. So our famous last question is, if you could put the stop sign on anybody's debt-free journey or relationship with debt and money, where would you put the stop sign to stop somebody from making a poor choice?
Ooh, that is a great question. I think honestly, it would be on accruing credit card debt.
Good one.
There's a lot of debts that are not good to have, but that's the one debt that will just trap you in a cycle of just a downward spiral of debt. So that's probably the one thing I would say really early on is just do not accrue credit card debt. I'm not saying don't use credit cards. I use a credit card, but that's probably the worst financial habit you can sort of get yourself into. And then I think it kind of spirals from there, because once you're using credit card debt, you're living outside your means, or you're living, spending money before you get the money. But regardless, it just creates a habit where you're being retrospective instead of prospective with your money. And that sort of sets you up to where everything else after that becomes harder.
Agreed. And felt that on a personal level.
Yeah, hardcore. And I feel like we talk all the time about avoiding lifestyle inflation and blah, blah, blah. But I mean, credit cards are what creates that. I just want to spend all this money that I don't have because it exists on this little plastic thing that I have no feelings towards when I swipe it until I get the bill, and then I cry and we don't have the money, It's just, we don't do that anymore, but it's definitely a spiral from there, because the credit card leads to the financing the car, which leads to the timeshare, and I'm talking about us right now.
Yeah.
It's just everything.
Yeah.
Oh, I felt that. Thank you.
Yeah.
That was a good
Well,
one.
how does it feel to be done with your credit card debt?
Oh my God.
Oh, it's been great. It's
So
been
good.
great. Every time we get, and we didn't even have American Express, but every time I get an American Express or a Discover thing in the mail, it's just get out of here.
Yeah.
It feels so good. It's liberating. It's really liberating. And you don't realize how deep it is, emotionally, until you're I don't owe this. I owe my home and my education, and that's it. And it's nice.
And to be totally transparent, I was slightly scared that leaving them open and not closing them, that was going to be a buffer for us falling back into it. But I'm so proud that we're now 13 months completely credit card debt free, and we have not gone back once.
No, and we shredded them. So
we don't have
them in the house.
we don't have the physical cards anymore, but we could just call them and get a replacement card, but we haven't. And I'm proud, because that would be something so easy to just like go back and do.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like I said, we have a credit card. We like to travel, and our debit card has foreign transaction fees, and our credit card doesn't. So we have one for that, and I use it for gas, and we just pay it off. That way, our credit score is good, and we have that for travel. But it's not something that I freely use. Like if I were to go shopping,
Right?
It's like, this is for gas. And it just keeps it to where there's no surprises when you go to pay the bill.
Yeah,
Yep.
for sure.
That's a smart one. So Kristin, where can people find you? Where can they connect with you, on Instagram or a website if you have one?
So my website is www.strivewithkristin.com. My website, or my Instagram, is @strivewithkristin. And I have sort of all sorts of resources to try to help people kind of get on their financial footing and get things moving on the right path. My online course that's sort of for money beginners just starting to figure out budgeting and expense tracking and all of that is called Cash Flow Cornerstones. And then I have an investing webinar that's available for purchase, and online individual coaching, and a kind of a bunch of other things. So go and check out my website and my Instagram. And if you think of any other questions, feel free to send me a DM. I'm happy to help.
Thank you so much. I'm going to make sure that I link your website and your Instagram in the show notes. So anyone who's listening who wants to connect, just scroll down to the show notes, click on it, and make sure you follow her, because she has great graphics about Jack and Jill. And Jill is the smart one.
Yes.
Thanks, guys. This was a ton of fun. I'm really, really glad I got to do this with you.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. We were both really excited, so we appreciate you taking some time out of your day to meet with us. We'll hopefully have you on again in the future.
Absolutely.
Take care. All right, everyone. Thanks for sticking around to hear our interview with Kristin. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed being able to sit down and talk with her, pick her brain, get a little bit of free coaching in there. It was a fun interview. Don't forget, you've got 2 more days to enter our Instagram giveaway. So go check out our Instagram, follow the instructions in the post. You know what to do. We'll have a couple different winners. Let us buy you coffee or buy you lunch for the week. You deserve it. You're wonderful.
We really appreciate all of your help. And please, please, please make sure you tune in next week. You do not want to miss next week's episode. We interviewed Chris from the Inspire to Fire podcast, and it is a pretty legit episode. So I'm excited to roll that one out for you guys.
Absolutely. That's going to do it for this episode of The Price of Avocado Toast. As always, we are so thankful that you stuck around to have this conversation today, and we're so thankful to be a part of this community with you all. Happy budgeting.
You've got this, Toasties. Thank you for listening to The Price of Avocado Toast. If you vibed with this episode, share it with a friend.
If you're interested in speaking more with the financial coach, hit up our coach Ryan at MeFinanciallyFree on Instagram.